Every day we listen a variety of sounds from our surroundings. These sounds may be pleasant or unpleasant depending on the object they are produced from. Hello friends, this is Praveen and today we are going to learn about the sound. So what actually is a sound? Have you ever tried to blow the air in a mouth organ? You have may noticed that harder you blow air in it. That means harder you apply the energy in it, the harder the voice you get. And the lower you blow the energy, that is the air, the lower the sound you get. That we can prefer that the sound is the form of energy. So this introduction. So what is a sound? A sound is everything we listen. So let's first learn about the production of the sound. So let's take the production of sound in another analogy. So if you are a person, you have to convey a message to another. You may directly run to that person and tell the story. That is the first way of transfer of the method. And a second method in which you can tell a person to tell the person to convey to the next person and so on until the message is reached by that person. So in the first scenario, the person has changed his location. In a second case, the person hasn't changed his location but the message has reached. So this method is known as the longitudinal way. So if it is a particle, that is the transferring of the whole, the transfer of the particles or from the man is running, this mainly takes in the, that is the fluids that is made up of that water, that is liquid or gases. So it is formed in the two cases in which the particle is transferring because there is not much particle between the another. So this is called the transversal wave. And the another scenario which we have discussed in this, it takes place in solids in which there is a length material present. So this person or this particle could transfer its energy to the next and next and next and next. So it reaches to the final particle. So the sound travels as a longitudinal waves. So let's see the production of the sound. So have you ever stand up near a loud speaker? So you may have noticed that some parts of your body or some parts of the object start vibration. And the definition of the sound says that a vibration of the body that produces sound. So what happens to see how does the production of the sound takes place? We can take is this rubber pad. So if you have a rubber pad and hit with a fork, so when you hit, the particles of this body was started vibrating. So vibrating causes the energy to be transferred, and this transfer of the energy which we hear is known as the sound. We will see how does we hear the sound in the later part of the chapter. So if the particles of this fog started vibrating, if you have a water near it, that is water, and if you put this fog into the water, you may see that ripples of water started coming. This is the form of the vibration. So this is how does the sound production of the sound takes place. So how does the production of the sound takes place in human? We know that it is produced from a throat, but which organ is essentially responsible for the production of the sound? We have an organ which in our throat which is called the larynx. This is also known as the voice box of the human body. So we know that we require something to be vibrated. So if a solid part is there, so we could not. But have you ever seen where if a person is choked or he do not have enough air inside it, he cannot speak or his voice started going down. And another scenario is by taking the hydrogen and helium gas, you may go or increase your pitch and decrease your pitch. So this, how does this is possible? So if we have a windpipe and this is our mouth, or this is a nozzle track in which the air is entering through the mouth and the nose. There is an epiglottis that protects the food not going in the windpipe that cause a chop. So here the small organ is present that is called larynx. As I told you, this is known as the voice box, in which what happens, there is a present of the vocal cords. So vocal cords are present like that way. So these have the two different muscular organs. When we are taking in the air, the voice boxes is open because they have to pass the air inside it. But when they are open, they causes the they are open, the voice or the sorry, when they are closed, when the air is rushed, so they vibrate these sounds, and the vibration of these sounds causes the vibration in air, then which we hear, and this produces a sound in the human beings. So I will tell you that this larynx box, which is the vocal cords, are shorter in women and longer in males, that we will see in the later part of this chapter why this longer and shorter parts in the man and woman. So now let's learn about the oscillations. So how is the vibration produced? So this could be understood by the oscillation. What is an oscillation? An oscillation is a simple nothing but it contains a stand. So this is a there is a stand. So it is which is a rigid support for the mechanics to go on, and here a thread is attached to it, and here is a suspended mass which is called bob. So what does a bob do is it when you push it or pull it, the bob goes that is do a to and fro motion. This to and fro motion is called oscillations. So there is a something property that the oscillation of these bobs is periodic. That means it comprises a same amount of the round or oscillate in this given period of time, and it continues the next in the same given of period time that it has covered the before. So let's learn the terms about this. So when the bob is in the rest, that means no displacement, not in neither in this direction or neither in this direction. This is called the mean position. This is called the mean position or the equilibrium position. So now these A, let me name this as B O A. And now the A and the B are the extreme positions or the highest displacement they could go through it. And now we see that OA and OB are equal. So now how do I technically define oscillation? The oscillation is simply the going from O to B, then to O, then to A, and then coming back to O. So oscillation simply carrying this process two times. So this is oscillation. It could be defined from the A to B to again to A, or B to A to again to B, or from A to B to A, O to A to B. So this is the oscillations. Now here the mean, at the mean position, the bob has the least displacement, and here it has the maximum displacement at the both B and E, because as you can see it is the maximum distance from the main position. And now here they have the least velocity, and here they have the highest velocity. That means the speed is changing. And one more thing that the speed of the bob depends upon is the string. Because now if you take in this scenario, it is a longer string, but if you have a shorter bob, that means it has to cover less distance. So it has to only go from here to here, but it has to go and cover this much of distance. So the shorter the string, the shorter the oscillation time. This we can understand with a wave diagram. So let me define. Mostly in hospitals you may have seen a diagram which is nothing but ups and downs in the cardiologic cycle, that graphs and that all. This is known as a wave. And so what is the wavelength? That is represented by lambda. So that is nothing but a complete from you can take any point on this dot and take the skip one and take the next. So this is called a wavelength. This is the, so let me give you the technical definitions of each one. So this on the top is called crust. That is the topmost point of the wave, and this is called trough. And this position, which is the center of this, is called mean. So what is we can define a wavelength as the distance between the two crust to mean or to true. We can take any one of these definitions. Now we have get the wavelength. So now let's learn about the frequencies. So what is the frequency? The frequency is nothing but when the bob, that is how much. So this is bob we have here. So this position, when it comes to the center or one oscillation, is called one wave. The how much the wave oscillates in 1 unit of 1 second of time is called frequency, and the SI unit of the frequency is hertz. So this is the SI unit of the frequency, and it is defined as the oscillations per unit time. So that if you have a frequency, it is refers as 1 by time period, as we can take it from the definitions, and the time should be in seconds. So if you are trying to convert any frequency into time period, most of you will go wrong if you are not taking the SI unit or the time period as the seconds. We have discussed about the time period. What is this time period? The time period is nothing, that is the time period is nothing but the completion of the one oscillation. The time that it takes to complete one oscillation, that is the distance of complete one wavelength, is called the time period. And now we have one more term, that is called amplitude. What is the amplitude? The amplitude is the highest, the distance between the this is start and the crest. This is called the amplitude. So I hope that you have learned all the terms. This is going to be essential when we are learning with the sound or the waves. So now we are going to learn about the characteristics of the sound. So what are the different characteristics of the sound? We will discuss with what we have learned, just as the amplitude and the frequency. So this is first, let's go different, let's learn about the first, loudness. So what is the loudness? The higher you may, in the most recording of the sounds, you may, when you speak louder, the waves starting going higher. But when you start speaking slowly, the wave starts going lower and lower. So this must be depending upon the distance between the crust and the trough. This is known as the amplitude. So higher the amplitude or the greater the amplitude, that is louder the sound. Louder the sound, and lower the amplitude, that means lower the sound, that is softer. So softer the sound. This depends upon the amplitude. So amplitude, and one more, that is called a pitch. So what actually is the pitch? So pitch is nothing but depends upon the frequency. So it is a high frequency. So it has a high frequency and it is a low frequency. But it has both a same altitude. So now what happens? When the frequency is higher, we pursue this as a silver voice, that is shrill. That is mainly in women's. The women's produce shrill, and but in the males, what happens? It has a, the distance or the frequency is less, so it produces a broad sound, which is also broad sound. So this is in men. So let me review the time. So this is the frequencies. So on the least, highest, that is the least frequency, here comes a man, and then the second most frequency we have is woman, and the third most frequency we have is a child, that is a boy. So that is a boy, and the least frequency, that is the highest frequency, is by a girl child. So this is the frequency is increasing in this order. So why the frequencies of the depends when we have a same lyrics. So let's see. As I have told you earlier that women have shorter wavelength, shorter vocal cords. So means that is the membrane. So the shorter means that they have to travel a least distance. So when they travel a least distance, so the time is increase is less. So they can complete a more oscillation in a given period of time. But a man which is having a higher or a longer wavelength, that is vocal cords, have to cover a larger distance to produce sound, that we pursue this as a broad sound and this as a stretch sound. So now we are going to learn about the propagation of the sound. We have seen what is the sound, what are the different characteristics of sound, but now how does a sound produce? So there was a famous experiment which was performed in earlier days, in which there was a bottle and a buzzer was kept in it. Buzzer or automatic alarm inside, which is connected to electric circuit outside, and you seal it with the airtight container and remove all the air inside it. So what would happen? There is no air molecules, and then if you will connect the circuit, you will hear the no sound, because in the characteristics of sound we have seen the vibration of this sound causes the vibration of the particles causes sound. So there are no particles which could be collide with another to produce sound. So how does so we can with this experiment we can conclude that sounds need a medium to travel. This medium could be a solid, liquid and gases. But what is the difference? Does the sound travels at the equal rate in the solid, liquid and gases? Well, no, because in the solid the particle is densely packed, so they do not need to lose much energy to transfer it to another one. So then it would transfer to another and transfer to another. So it doesn't need. But in the liquids it has a lesser compared to the liquids. So it has a less amount, and in the gases it is the least dense. So the free if you have a gas which is approximately liquids are 4 times as strong as gas, and the solids are 4 times faster. The sound of in the solid is 4 times faster than the liquids, and so you can compare the gas to liquid, it is 16 times faster. So this is an analogy how does the sound depends in the different states of matter. So now let's learn about the this is how the sound is produced. But now how does the sound propagates? That means travels. So if you have a vibrating observation, that means a vibrating body here. So means the body is going like that way. So it causes some, if there are equal uniform of the particles present in that, so it first pushes this disruption. That means there is a higher density of this particles here, and then when it go back it causes a low pressure. That means there is the least amount of the particles present here, and then it continues to vibrate in that direction. That causes a dense, then low, then dense, and then low, and so on. So this is how does the sound So it forms as a compression. So this form as a compression and rarefaction. That means so now it is a rare medium, so it would travel in to the denser medium would travel to the lower medium, and then it would go on propagating in this direction. For a competitive approach, we can see the sound travels in all the directions, so the sound traveling in one direction started getting decreased. This is called the intensity of the sound. So intensity of the sound decreases as the distance is increased. So they are indirectly proportion. So now let's learn about the human ear, that how we hear the sound that is formed by an oscillating body. So first, the outer part of the ear we see is called the pinna. That is called pinna. So this is the outer part or the muscular part of the ear, which helps to focus all the lights, focus all the sound coming. So this focuses all the sounds which is coming. This then is converged into a tube which is called auditory tube, which what it is has a hair-like present in these walls, which stops the small bacteria to go inside it, or the small particles to go inside it. So it produces a whiskey-like substance called wax, which is formed when the wax is produced. A small microorganisms or the particles are attracted to it, and it forms a large clump which is known as wax. So this was an outer ear. So now let's move to the middle ear. So after we have see that the vibration is going inside the human body, now we have a diaphragm. This large stick which helps us to detect the vibration. This is called the eardrum, and this is called. So the eardrum is attached to the one of the three smallest bones in our human body. This bone 1, the bone 2, and the bone 3. Then the third bone, which is a hammer, pushes this energy of the vibration into the snail-like structure called cochlea. So the cochlea has a fluid inside it which helps to the electric conduction, and so when this motion is transferred into cochlea with the electrical signals, it is observed, and which type of the sound is produced, that is reached by the auditory nerves to our brain. So there is our brain. So it is reached by a brain, and it can see, oh, that sound is produced. So now the another function of this cochlea is to keep the balance. So if the ear would be absent in the human body, then we could not keep the balance by cycling or by spinning. So this pinna was first considered as first was useful in the earlier times, because we have lots of background sounds of the animals while hunting, or the peoples while hunting. This helps us to concentrate the needed sound in the human body. But nowadays we have the technology, so it is considered as an accessory organ. So this is we have see how does our human ear help us to listen. So now let's learn about the speed of the sound. So as you know that if we have a solid, then we have this liquid and gas. The gas is 4 times stronger that is weaker than the liquid, and the 4 times the stronger than the solid, and we can go that is 16 times smaller than the gas. So this is about the speed of the sound. But the speed of sound, it also depends upon the particle made up of it and the intensity of the sound. So what happens when we break the sound barrier? So have you ever seen when a fighter plane starts or zoom the speed of the sound, that the sound layer travels at the 330 meters per second in the air at the normal room temperature. So the fighter jets which have a speed of 1000 meters per hour, that help or break the sound barrier. So this produce these machines or these vehicles are called the supersonic vehicles. And when we these fighter planes zap zoom in the skies, we hear the sound. This is because of the sonic boom. So what is the sonic boom? It is actually the wave that is produced by the fighter planes when they are zooming in the skies. That is the faster the rate of the sound, which breaks the sound barriers and causes a shock wave, which is known as a sonic boom. So now let's learn about the echo. That is, echo is nothing but a reflection of the sound. We have seen about the reflection of the sound. That is light. It is similar to this reflection of the light. It follows the principle that when in which direction it is coming, it would go in that direction. But the sound is converging, that it travels in all the direction. So we cannot define that for the sound, but we can define that angle of incident is equals to the that is angle of incident, and that is the normal, and that is equals to the angle of incident, and that is equals to the angle of reflection, which we can define. So now what is the echo? So if we have a surface here and I produce a sound which hit the surface and returns back in the same direction in which it has come, so I hear the second voice after I have produced the first voice. This is known as an echo. So to differentiate between the sound produced by me and the sounds produced by the echo, we require a 1 second, that is 1 by 10 second of the sound. And if we will calculate the, so if I am here and there is a wall here, it have to go this distance and come back to me to I have to hear it. So the echo can be calculated as a distance between me and the wall, that is time taken by the wall distance and the speed of this sound. So we require at least 17 meters because for the for the sound to come to here, it should be more than 1 by 10th of the second. To fulfill this category of the sound has to be more than 17 meters, or the distance between me and the wall have to be more than 17 meters. So now let's learn about the different types of sounds. Our typical human hears the sound between the frequencies of 20,000 hertz, 20 hertz to 20,000 hertz. We cannot hear any sound which is lesser than the 20 hertz and more than the sound that is 20,000 hertz. So this is the audible range of the human being. But when the sound produced is smaller than the 20 hertz, this sound could not be listened by a human being, but we have a technical definition for it. This is known as the infra sound. Infra means it is smaller than the typical range of our human body to hear it. This is produced by some animals which have a lower frequency than a human being, and the same way the opposite of the infrared is the ultrasound. Ultrasound is have a higher frequency than the 20,000 hertz. So this is also heard by the peoples, not peoples but animals. So this could be helped in a medical technology or the medical fields to form the take the ultrasound image of our human body. So now we appreciate difference for the music and noise. So a music, what is a music? A music is technically a regular or the pleasant sounds produced by a object, and the noise is opposite, that is irregular unpleasant sound produced by our any object is called noise. So how do we produce music? How we can notice that is the music? A music is always is mostly played by the musical instruments. So let's see how does the musical instruments create sound. So firstly, if you have a guitar, if you have a guitar, the guitar has a different types of strings. That it has 6 strings. The thickness of these, if you have zoom or carefully notice the strings of the guitar, the first strings goes bigger, and the second string is somewhat smaller, and this goes increasing, and when the last one is almost straight. So the thickness of the sound lets the, so it is a higher mass, so it would have to rotate faster, so this produces a broad sound, and the smallest one produces a thicker sound. So this is the string instruments which produce this sound. But a flute or the wind instruments produce a sound by the vibrating columns. This depends upon the finger you have placed on a flute, so that it will produce the sound on different intensity or the different pitch. And one you have seen as tabla. It is called prescription instruments, in which the skin of that is stretched skin is made up of the different types of the materials which has a higher or the different thickness or the density. So higher the density, they will have to go cover the less distance, so this makes the sound difference. And now last we have is the voice pollution, noise pollution. So what is the noise pollution? Noise pollution is when we have a lot of pollution in the environment. So if we have a normal chart, the noise pollution is measured in the intensity of the loudness of the sound is measured in decibels. This is dB. So here on this chart we have, here is dB, and here we have is an object that is producing the sound. So a normal average at home is about 20 that is 50 decibels, which is also okay for our ears. Then we have is a normal speech that is at a 60. Then a vacuum cleaner from a 1 meter distance, that is 70. Then we have a loud or the conversational speech, that is loud speech, that is at 90. And then we have the loud disco that produces the sound of that is disco that produces the sound of 100. And we have, then we call it as the drilling machines or the drills which have an intensity of 110. After this 110 decibels, our ears goes stop functioning, and this is the range of 120 decibels, which is recorded as noise pollution, and which is unbearable or unpleasant for the listeners. And after the we have is if you will consider with the airlift or the airport, it has a intense that is decibels of 150 decibels. So you have mostly noticed that the people who are working at the airport wears a headphone to protect their ears. So what measures you can take to stop the noise pollution? So noise pollution has many consequences, just like they could make the people deaf, or they could make the species of that animal species of that area gone extinct, because they could not bear that planet and they have to shift their habitat, and this habitat may cause the change in the regulation of their DNA. So a technical cause or the technical how we can afford this or the lower this noise pollution is by growing more and more trees. So what does growing more and more trees do is they stop the sound. We know that energy is a form sound is a form of energy which loses by the we can second law of kinematics, that energy is loosened by some or more means of transport. So when we have a tree barrier, when it hits it, some of this energy is gone and it left with some amount of the energy, so it goes forward and hence decreasing the voice. So this is how we can perform or lower the noise pollution. So now let's summarize what we have learned today. First, we have learned today about introduction to the sounds, and then we learn about how does the sound is produced, that is by production of the sound. Then how does the sound is produced in a human beings, and we have learned about the oscillation, that is the slower form of the vibrating object. Then we learn about the frequencies, amplitude, time periods, and then we learn about some characteristics of the sound that it follows, such as loudness and pitch. Then we see how does the sound is travels or propagates. Then how does we hear, that is the human ears. And then we learn about the speed of sound, that is gone with the terms supersonic and supersonic booms. Then we learn about the reflection of the sound, which is called echo, and the different types of sounds, which is known as infrasound and ultrasound. And then we learn the difference between the music and the noise, and we learn about the instruments and the noise pollution. So friends, I hope that the sound chapter is clear to you, and at the last, thanks for watching.